As someone from the US, I can tell you exactly what things Americans typically like. Some of the stereotypes about us that we may or may not agree with say we like big cars, big houses, good customer service, free refills, ice in our drinks, fast food, a positive attitude, all things patriotic, barbecues, guns, and a whole lot more. But stereotypes don't ring true across the board, do they? No. And let's turn to the French. What about them? What do French people like? Well, after observing them now for about a decade, I think I can make a pretty good list of things French people love. So maybe you've fallen in love with these things about French people like I have, and let's just get right into 9 things French people love that I've come to love too. Bonjour tout le monde, I'm Diane. This is We in France, where we talk about everyday French life and beyond, and let's get right into it with number 1. Number 1, going to the pharmacy regularly. Now, here in France, pharmacy culture is alive and well, and I love it. There are so many of them, and they're packed to the brim with all kinds of interesting pills, potions, remedies for things you've maybe never even heard of or even considered, like heavy legs. I didn't even know what that was until I came to France, let alone know about a remedy for it. But yes, the French love their local pharmacies out of necessity, first and foremost, because truth be told, you cannot get Advil and other over-the-counter medications anywhere else. But French pharmacies, above all, they're mainstays in French life. They have a role in the community. And many people have a personal relationship with their pharmacist, and they have for years. They're on a first-name basis. And they're the place to go for beauty products, skin creams, baby formula, consults for non-urgent burns and sprains, and all kinds of things. And Doliprane is a popular pain reliever, and Synthol is a must for summer bug bites. So check those 2 out. As you probably know, medicines of any kind are not found at the grocery store. And in addition to your prescription items, your over-the-counter headache medicines, laxatives, anything else you'd rather discreetly buy, they do have to be picked up in person at your neighborhood pharmacy. Pharmacists in France, I found, seem to be really helpful. They're never too busy to explain a medication or the instructions, and all employees have pharmacy training, so no one is just hired at a French pharmacy to work the register or stock shelves. And I love French pharmacies. I really do love them as much as the French. And I even made a behind the scenes French pharmacy video that you could watch here as well. So you can click over to that. But let's move on to number 2. The use of the word petit, or if it's feminine, petite. Now, beyond its literal meaning of small, or sometimes short, depending on the context, the French use the word petit or petite in a cutesy, not literal way that I find really endearing. Like, for example, I'm gonna have a petite soirée tonight with just a few close friends. You know, like 50 people, a petite little get-together, no big deal. Or let's go for a petit café tomorrow. Like, just have a little get-together, get a coffee. And I even use little, the word little in English, the same way that the French use petit now, you know, and that French usage has really rubbed off on me, even in my native tongue, and I love that. All right, number 3, wearing slippers. Now, I don't know if French people have exceptionally cold feet or if it's just French people in my family, but it seems like bare feet or just sock-covered feet are not quite as common around the house here in France. Now, Americans like slippers too, don't get me wrong, but French people really love wearing slippers around the house. It almost seems obligatory, and my husband Tom, he insisted on buying a pair of slippers while on vacation in Florida a couple of years ago, so we'd have them to wear around my parents' house, or actually now just my dad's house since my mom passed away. But it has mostly tiled floors, so even in the summer, you know, your feet can get cold. Now, slippers are serious business in France. I've come to love them and wear them myself. All right, number 4, having a sugary breakfast. Now, I'm not saying that Americans don't ever have sugary breakfast, because that would be inaccurate. Of course, people eat donuts and sugary cereals and all of that. But the difference here is that in France, a savory breakfast consisting of things like eggs and sausage, that's not really an option. I mean, I guess you can make it for yourself, but French people don't really have a savory breakfast. You know, they're not gonna whip out the bacon and sausage and all of that. Sweet is the name of the game for breakfast in France, not savory. I did a whole video on breakfast in France if you want to know more. But many people in France, they eat that sweet breakfast, sometimes sweet cereal, pain au chocolat, toasted baguette with jam, but no sausage and eggs. It's not a thing. And a lot of French people even skip breakfast because they weren't raised with the saying, you know, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, like we were in a lot of areas in the US. But regardless, Breakfast has always been my favorite meal, and I still go savory most of the time. But I love oatmeal. I have that often, but here and there, I've taken on some French habits, and I go that baguette and jam route when I'm in a rush. All right, number 5, eating dessert. Let me continue my French habits list here with another sweet one. It's just too good not to. Lots of food items are making my list, and all I can say is amen to that, and it speaks to the French food culture. They're masters at getting food culture right, and dessert is no exception. It's a normal course at a French meal, so after you're done eating your main dish, people will often finish their meal with cheese and or a dessert, depending on how much room you have left. And no, the portions are not gigantic. You're not going to leave, feeling stuffed, but they will make you appreciate that French attention to mealtime details, especially depending on where you're dining. Dessert can be quite a sight, and it's definitely not shameful to eat dessert or a faux pas. I know in the US, a lot of people feel guilty or they say things like, I'm gonna be bad. No, in France, dessert's even encouraged. So go for it. Have a little bit, have a taste, and enjoy it. All right, number 6, taking vacation time. And I've mentioned many times before that the French work to live and not the other way around. They also get 5 weeks or more of paid vacation each year as a full-time employee, and they're encouraged to use it. And if you're a fonctionnaire, a civil servant like my husband, you get even more time off. Now, like I said, it's completely normal and encouraged to take a summer vacation. And you'll see many people just peace out to the beach for a full month, or at least 2 or 3 weeks. Summer vacation that's a week long isn't super common. And then French people will take other weeks off during the year just to recharge and regroup. And it's really common to see local shops and businesses, even medical offices, closed for the entire month of July or even August, at least a couple of weeks. Now, in the US, I feel it would be more common to kind of stagger vacation among the employees so that all businesses can remain open. And in some American offices, 2 consecutive weeks off might even raise eyebrows a bit, and actually did in my case when I was working for one of the big 4 firms back in New York, when I visited New Zealand for 2 weeks. And that didn't go over well, but I went, it was okay. Now in France, that whole mindset around vacation and work is approached differently. Despite the differences, everything still seems to be functioning just fine, despite that frequent time off in France. All right, number 7, the name Brian, or en français, Brian. My cousin's name is Brian. I've always liked the name, but in France, the name Brian is next level, It's something that if you ask anyone who's ever studied English in a French elementary school during the 80s and 90s, ask them if they know where Brian is. It's a cultural reference and even a bit of a joke among comedians to ask, where is Brian? And everyone knows the answer. Brian is in the kitchen. Everyone's heard this. French comedian Gad Elmaleh, he made it even more popular, and I'll link to that clip on YouTube below. But for reasons unknown, it seems that all French publishers fell in love with the name Brian, and used the name as an example for all of their English lessons. Of course, don't forget to pronounce the name like I just did. Brian en français is Brian. Get that French flair. And despite the name being part of a joke, I still like it as much as the French do. All right, number 8, cafe culture. Now, if you've been to France, you know that taking time to sit down over a drink, it's part of any good vacation, and it's definitely how it's done in France among the French. Now, while getting coffee to go is on the rise, especially in big towns, it was pretty much unheard of when I first moved to France a decade ago, except for McDonald's. The culturally French way to get your morning shot of espresso is to sit down out on the terrace if the weather's nice, read the morning paper, people watch, grab a croissant, and just get to it, prepare for the day, take time to yourself, and enjoy the moment like a lot of French people do. You could check out this video all about how to order a coffee at a French cafe so you are prepared. All right, lastly, we have number 9, diesel cars. Now, in the US, diesel vehicles are less popular than they are here in France and other areas of Europe. In fact, we bought a diesel Nissan Juke back in the day. We actually just got rid of it. We have a gas car now as of 2 weeks ago, but we try to walk everywhere. But anyway, at the time, back in the day, it just made sense since diesel fuel was significantly cheaper than regular gas, and it makes sense if you drive a lot. So Here in France, at least, you'll have to let me know if this is the same in the US. While the diesel version of a car, that engine, costs more up front than its gas counterpart, the fuel is cheaper. So if you're doing a lot of long trips, you might save some money if you have a diesel engine just because that gas is cheaper. But these days, more French people are opting for other options like electric cars, a lot of hybrids, just because of that environmental impact. And I could definitely get on board with that. As I said, we no longer have a diesel car. Now, just for one quick rental car tip, if you're renting a car in France, make sure you know if your car is gas or diesel before you head to the pump. You can save yourself a lot of aggravation and money. So make sure you know what kind of fuel you're putting in your car. And yeah, let me leave it there for today. I'd love to hear from you in the comments about other habits you love, about the French way of life. You know what? For more info about traveling in France, have a look at my ebook titled 75 Beginner Travel Tips for a Standout Trip to France, linked below. And if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see the reverse, things the French love that I personally can't stand. That could be a fun one. But as always, thank you for being here. Hit that subscribe button and I'll see you back here on We in France soon. Salut!